Today, this is my fourth Tech Time session, and this one we're talking about textile printing. And it's very informal. We're just going to see how the questions flow, and you never know if we might tempt some more people along. I've got a mixed bunch here. I would call them friends, probably, as well as work colleagues. They're all looking at me in a scared way. First of all, I'm just going to ask them to introduce themselves briefly, and then we'll get on to the first question. Roland.
My name is Roland Biemans. I'm the founder of Elements. That's a company helping people doing new business development.
And Kana, she's done this before.
Hello, my name is Encana. I work in rural Iberia for more or less for almost 4 years. I am in digital printing market working for almost 26 years. I'm really involved in the last 7-8 years in things related with textile.
I would just add that Encana works for Roland DG and is of no relationship whatsoever to the Roland sitting at the end. The name is pure coincidence. Yeah. Rowan.
Hello, my name is Rowan Bloomberg and I'm responsible for the marketing communication at Hollanders Printing Systems, and we are a printer manufacturer of textile printers.
Stephen.
Stephen Hood, Managing Director of ESP Technologies Group. We've been going 21 years. We started in screen printing. 15 years ago we jumped into digital printing with a 5-meter ViewTech, and 3 years ago we jumped into textile printing with a Hollanders 3.2 meter textile printer.
And I don't think anybody wants to know who I am. My name is there somewhere, but I've been kind of working. Oh, it's there as well, so I know who I am. I've been working in the industry on and off for probably before most of you were born. Certainly 4 of the panelists before they were born, I think. But I work as a consultant and analyst and write a lot of features and generally watch what the industry is doing. And the first question that I've got for my gang is a kind of typical one. Every trade show we come to, every FESPA we come to, there are all these textile printers, but why hasn't it taken off as a process that's moving as quickly as some of the other ink technologies? Who shall we start with? Who'd like the microphone? Encana.
Okay, no problem. It's true what you say, Sophie, that in the last years in every exhibition we can see a lot of potential around textile, but still it's like the PSP companies or marketing companies related with all the advertisement, communication tools are like thinking to change to textile, but they never change. I think one of the reasons is because they don't know the finishing process. Printing, they can understand very well because they are printing also on paper, on banner, with different kind of technologies, UV, solvent, eco-solvent, water-based. Then for them understand the printing process, I think is very easy. But the problem is that, okay, but now I need to manage fabrics, no paper. I know how to finish, how to hang up, how to transport, and then it's something that they still need to learn and need to find new suppliers around their business. And maybe it's one of the reasons that by the moment we think they need to move faster, but they move slowly into textile. Maybe one of the reasons.
Rowan, we won't pretend you've been in the industry for a long time, because you haven't, but you've done a remarkable job in the time you have been with us, she says. As a newcomer, obviously to the whole digital printing environment in a sales or in a marketing role, what are you finding are the main stumbling blocks, the main difficulties in explaining what textile, how the whole textile side works?
I do think that people do find it difficult to get into textile because textile is different than printing on paper or printing it with UV or solvent or any other kind, and it's not the same way of printing. It's a different approach that you need, and it's a very a very delicate product to handle, and I think people do not always realize that there are many differences between printing on paper or anything and printing on textile. So that makes the step harder to go into textile once they find their first steps around, shall I look at the market to print on textile, and they get a bit hesitant if it's really what they should be doing. And that's what I experienced over the last 18 months.
Do you find the finishing is the bit that puts them off a lot?
Not necessarily. It could be, but I don't know the exact difference between the finishing on textile and when you do it when it's on paper, whether it's...
Well, very often on paper, when it's printed, that's
It's done.
But
yeah.
with textile, you
Well,
have to go through additional steps.
I think it's extra steps, but it's not necessarily difficult to do those steps. But you need to keep them in mind, of course, otherwise you have an unfinished product. Yeah. And I think what is important is that the fixation part is an extra thing that you need to keep in mind. You need to, whether or not you want to wash it, there are a lot of different options that you can use, and people often do not know enough about it to make a decision on what they want to do.
Now, Stephen, you've had a checkered career with various different types of technology, and you had a little dabble in textile before you decided to go for Hollanders as your supplier. I mean, how did you feel your approach to it right back at the start? Were you put off with, goodness, it's complicated, or?
Yes, I think I would agree. It's complicated because you've got a series of processes, and then yes, you've got the challenge of a new range of substrates which have particular finishing requirements and handling requirements and expectations as to how they should look. But I'm going to turn this round a bit if I can.
Oh, go on.
Because if I was starting today with looking at a UV printer, especially a hybrid, you can print on roll media, you can print on rigid media, it's dry straight away, it can be cut very easily, it's very straightforward. Even though we're 3 years in and we're very comfortable working with textiles, the challenges are there. And so you've got much more technology to get to grips with, to start up. So I think that is a daunting prospect for people. But this is all very negative, and I don't like negativity.
Oh, good.
Only half full glasses, of course. I think the answer is to strengthen the demand, and then to get the premium for what is a better solution, a better product. Yes, you've got more processes to manage in-house, which does have costs, whether that's overhead space, or more important, it's human know-how, because there is a lot of knack in getting the best out of all the printers, even the ones that at the show will look fully automatic. Many of them are not. And it's that long learning curve. At the end of this, for ESP, because we're comfortable with all the technologies now, we can genuinely offer customers alternatives. And when a customer is shown an alternative, it's taken a while, but my experience is that they will usually prefer the better colour from the textile print. I've talked too much.
I was fascinated. I was just sitting here listening. Roland, you've forgotten what the question... No, you're Encarna and he's Roland. You can be Roland DG and you can be Roland B.
Roland B, yes, okay. Now I think the first question is that you have to establish what textile printing is then, because there's very different types of textile printing. It's garments, it's T-shirts, could be visual communications. And if you look at it from the side of the application, then you're going to make easier decisions because you know what you're looking for. Saying going into textiles is difficult, I think the most difficult thing there is to first establish what you'd like to get out of it. Because you can go for vinyl, you can go for paper in soft signage. You can, you want to go on dresses or scarves or swimwear, that's also a textile. So that pretty much first says what you need to choose. The problem is, I think, that most of the time it's being put on a pile of saying it's textile printing, and then you have all the options, and that makes it a daunting process to find your way into the right answers.
Which kind of leads me on to the next question quite nicely, which is, as Stephen pointed out, when people see the results, if customers are offered the choice, they'll want to go for textile if they can. I mean, obviously you can't do that with a rigid application, but if they're offered the option between a standard roll-fed print done on solvent or UV curable or textile, and you say they're wowed by what they can get out of textile, and we'll move on to the environmental and the logistics, I can't speak, the logistics side in a minute. But, it's actually getting it across to customers from the PSP. How do you tell them that it's not just T-shirts or very short run dye sub in little tiny sizes? Let's start with you this time.
Well, we don't do tiny sizes. We only do giant, bigger and biggest. So that's not a part of the market that we're looking to. Our marketplace is usually exhibitions or museums, or large format, bright outdoor event graphics, but not the specialized flags and small but maybe higher volume products. So I don't have any knowledge in those traditional areas, but because everybody, in terms of selling the benefits, I'm selling the benefits of the dye sub printing in the large format area. In the small format, flags, even in the UK, which seems to be a very long way behind anywhere else in Europe in terms of fabric printing, the petrol stations, you can't tell much difference between a European petrol station and a UK petrol station now. They'll have similar, but they wouldn't have done 10 years ago. So it's only as an observer that I would have any input to the small format textile market.
But not just small. I mean, it's just communicating textile printing as an option to your customer base, regardless of size. I mean, somebody comes to you and says, I want a series of exhibition graphics. How do you, if they're open-minded, do they lead the decision to you, or do they come to you and say, we've heard we can have this outdoor durable stuff, blah, blah, blah?
We would usually offer them alternatives and give them benefits. One of those benefits, and that may bring to their attention things that they hadn't considered, which might be the green aspect, which might not have been a major point for them, but after they can see that they can have it and the graphic looks better, that may switch them. And I see a slow education process with our customers, and it is slow. I wish I knew how to make it go faster. So any ideas, of course. But slowly, it wins. And it wins because there are circumstances where it's absolutely the best option. There are others where it's a good option, but there may be some other good options. And we usually let our clients decide. Because I can't tell them what to do as much as I may like to.
I mean, Rowan, from your point of view, when somebody comes to Hollanders and says, I'm thinking of buying a textile printer, do they say, but we don't know how we're going to sell it to our customers, but we don't know this, or are they already fixed in their mind that they want to go for a textile printer and then they'll worry about trying to build up their market later?
Well, I've been in the business for about 18 months now, which is not that long.
It's
but
a lifetime.
It's a lifetime, yes. No,
You need a pension. Give the lady a pension.
pension
Pay
already.
rise.
Wow.
Give her a pay rise.
No, but I do see, and if I specifically look at the FESPA and I see last year's FESPA and this year's FESPA, I do get the idea that people are more determined to go into textile. We get more and more people that say, we already know we want to go into textile, we just don't know what's the right way to do it. So they know it already and they want to do it, but they mainly want advice and want to know what the best way would be to go, to do that. And so I don't find them that hesitant anymore. Of course, you have the people that are investigating it and are still a bit on the, they're just wandering around. But we see more and more people that already know that they want to do it, they just don't know how to do it, and they ask you for advice, and they want honest advice and helpful information to make their decision. And 9 out of 10 times they haven't done a lot of research though, which is interesting, because how do you know that you want to go into textile if you don't know all the options and everything that comes with it? But people seem to be more determined. That's what we see. Yeah.
I mean, and Kana, your market sector is slightly different to the
Yes.
to the serious 3.2 boys, the double-sided boys or girls.
Yes, we are in a different segment compared with her. They are in a 3.2, maybe really focalized to soft signers or this kind of application. In case of Roland, our textile experience is based in a small machine, but we have really different kind of business around our machine. Soft signers, sublimation, then we start to move, as Roland said. Textile is a huge world.
Roland, not this Roland. This Roland or this Roland? This Roland.
But I think we share the opinion and we almost agree, okay?
They're joined at the hip.
The textile is really huge. And then you can find just t-shirt printing, soft signers in 3.2, sublimation in 64 inches machine. Then all the application or all the segment, all the markets needs different things. Needs different products in terms of the fabrics, different process, different machines, different finishing related with real textile, but also finishing like how to cut the fabric. People that is working with banners sometimes says, okay, but now I am starting with soft signers, 3.2 machine, but now I need to cut. Oh, my cutter in my house, in my office, is not cutting fabrics. This is the kind of finishing that I think people that is going to into textile need to think about. Not only what is related 100% with text fabric, but also the normal process we need for fashion, for soft signers. We need to know all the things around. But for me, the most important is to help the customer to understand what he needs. As a manufacturer, as a consultant, sometimes people arrive, especially this is very often in Roland, because we have like a entry, medium level of customers due to our machine. Then many people is starting their business with our machine. Maybe after they go to find 3.2 machine, but at the beginning they want to start with a small printer, low level of investment, and they ask, I want to do this. Yes, but to do this you need this. Really? Yes, and then we need to teach them. And I think it's really, really important. Textile is huge. It's not the same when you need to buy something to do the chef, or fashion, or soft signers in large format. Then is the key. Understand what the customer wants, and then offer him information. Of course, if we can sell our solution, it's perfect. But if not, recommend him other solution that he can found.
Stephen wants to say something, and then Roland.
Well, although this is perhaps not completely the forum, I think the manufacturers need to sell fabric printers in a different way than they sell a UV flatbed printer. And they have to have much more sensitive, as you say, sensitive to the customer's needs. It's not about making the sale and bye-bye customer, I've got your money. It's making sure it's the right choice for the customer and helping them into the specialized finishing. So the manufacturers have something to learn in how they approach and to incorporate the specialist finishing requirements. That was just my extra 2 penny.
No, that's fine.
That's old money, 2 pennies.
Right. There'll be some more old money wanted in a minute, but
Because I have to add something to that, because if you
No.
look at really, if you look at Hollanders as a company that sells that equipment, there has been an initiative called Competence Center, where the full A to Z workflow is being addressed. So that's already an initiative by a manufacturer that goes the extra length to teach people what the possibilities are. So it's not just a machine; it's the machine plus the ink, plus the media, plus the cutting, plus the sewing. It starts off with the artwork, with the whole workflow with color management. And the moment you oversimplify by just saying this machine can do everything for you, purchases and goodbye, then you're making a big mistake, because then the people are being let down in the end, because they were told it is easy as normal sign making, and it isn't, because it's a different type of materials, different type of application. So that sort of initiatives, Roland has the same thing, well not me, but Roland, where you have demo centers, where there's an explanation of what is sublimation printing and what is dispersed direct printing. It's the same family of inks, but it's a different type of production.
I think one of the interesting things, and I've noticed this with you when we were talking yesterday with garment printing, is that Roland DG is quite realistic in its outlook. Roland DG appreciates it only goes so far up the digital print channel, if you like, and then you realize that at that point you need to recommend somebody goes to the next step up. And yesterday you were talking to the guy from Cornet, because with garment you can only go so far, and I think that's the same with fabric printing in general, and you can never turn around and say this is the only machine you'll ever need. It's a bit like Hollanders. If you suddenly got somebody that only wanted to print industrial textile at 500 square meters an hour, 24/7, it wouldn't be you. You'd hand it to the next person up the chain. But I like the fact that manufacturers now are beginning to realize that they have a stopping point, which is somebody else's start point. And you're not saying we're the only manufacturer that can do this. And plenty do, believe me, but I think there's more flexibility in the textile sector, where people acknowledge that there are different ways of doing things, and rather than sell somebody the wrong solution, you would rather make sure you pass them to the person, and then when they want something else, they'll come back to you for that. Yeah.
Yeah, there's also, to make a strong point out of, that there's things like aftermarket inks, or that people are trying to sell print heads outside of the normal channel, where they also oversimplify the fact that they say, yeah, we have a very good ink, just put it in your system and it will run. And then in the end, it doesn't. So for the manufacturers, it's also a good thing to show what the benefits are in having that sort of combination, and not just saying any ink will run on any head without any problems. So it's raising awareness, That's why this Tech Time panel thing is very good. FESPA is good at that.
Yeah.
It's raising awareness and teaching people that there's more to it.
I mean, Rowan, how do you feel about it? Because obviously Hollanders sits in a particular space. In the original space you were in, which was kind of a higher end 3.2 market, you then came down to the 2.5 to bring out more of an entry-level machine, but then you've also got the double-sided machine, so you cover a slightly different area, but you stuck with the route that you're not going in the online fixation route because you don't think it's the right one. But I think Hollanders is kind of separate from many of the others. Do you find you get treated with more respect because you're honest about it, or you're not going around saying we can do everything and it's all included?
Well, to be honest, not always. You get people over that only think it's all about the money and selling an extra machine, and they don't think it's necessary. But what we do is we believe in the fact that inline fixation is not the right way to go at it, and it has to do with the fact that temperature is very important, and speed of your printing comes together with the inline fixation, which gives you could give you possible trouble when fixating, when it's on a different speed. And another thing that is interesting is that when you roll up your fabric, it needs to be dried good enough to how do you say that? To make sure that it doesn't stamp on the other side. And there are many other extras that we do believe that having a different fixation unit gives you the opportunity to see it as a different process. It's not printing and inline fixation, it's printing and then afterwards inline fixation, and that's to give your printing process the full the full force, so to speak, but also your inline fixation the full force and the full the full benefits, and that gives you the best result. That's what we stand for, and that's what we try to tell people. Doesn't mean that they need to work that way, but yeah, we highly recommend people to do that. And an extra thing would be that if you have a separate fixation unit, you can have multiple machines working on that one fixation unit, which leads you to more benefits when you expand your production. So, yeah.
And another thing that talking to people that have bought machines with inline fixation, this sounds like a marketing ploy, doesn't it? But you're going to get greater material waste just by the way that you have to feed the material into the machine to start with. I don't know if you agree with that, but I spoke to one user who said the amount of wastage through inline fixation is really very, very high. I mean, what's your thought on this one? Which one would you like? Purple or yellow?
Yellow. I think finally it's a customer needs to choose the right combination for what he needs. Just thinking of my experience, I have seen for example, in the fixation, inline fixation, separate products. Sometimes separate is better, especially when you are working maybe with 3.2 machines, that also the speed is really faster compared with the small machines. When you talk about the small machines, a customer also is like an entry-level customer. Maybe he doesn't the space to install a 3.2 machine plus 3.2 fixation unit plus an operator using this kind of devices. And then if customer found a solution that is direct printing plus online fixation unit connected to the machine is the starting point for this kind of customers. Then, what is better? My opinion, maybe I am wrong. There are many experts around here.
You
okay?
couldn't be wrong.
I could be wrong. Maybe I am wrong. No, could be. Maybe I am. But for example, people that want to start, I think it's impossible to invest what they need in terms of space, resource, money in a 3.2 machine, maybe in the perfect solution. Then it's like when you go to buy your first car. I like a Ferrari,
No.
but first, no money. If I asked when I was 20 years old to my father, Papa, I want a Ferrari. What? Forget it. And then I say, what about Seat Ibiza second-hand machine? Perfect for you. It's like this, a comparison, no, with this. Sometimes the best product, the best solution is not what customer can buy. And then he needs to start in another kind of solution. We cannot say it's bad, just to explain to the customer, this is the advantage, this is the disadvantage. Then what is your situation? What is what you need? What do you want to do? Then my recommendation is this one, but be careful, because the bad point is this and this. If you have money, if you have experience, if you have resource, go directly to this step. But if not, it's better that you start in an entry level, not the perfect solution, but at the end you start to have knowledge. You start to know what you need around. And the second step will be 3.2, 5 meter, direct printing, sublimation, I don't know, but just, then what is the best? It's difficult to say for me. This solution is really bad, and this solution is the perfect one. Depends what you need, depends of your money, of what you know.
But one thing, of course, if you go the independent route, is you could buy your fixation unit from one company, and you could buy your printer from another company, and you would know that that fixation unit could stay as you grow your print process, and you're not having to discard the whole lot because you've got independent units. Now, I know Stephen has just bought a washing machine. I don't mean one for washing his underwear, but a washing machine to wash his prints. So the whole modularity means that if you keep the units separate, and I know we've gone off in a slightly different discussion here, but I think it's interesting, you're not fixed to one manufacturer. So he could be using a Roland printer. That's a Roland DG printer, because Roland doesn't make printers yet. But there's no law that says I have to use a Cleaverick, I have to use whatever. Stephen, you like the modular approach, and I know your first approach into textile was the opposite, but we don't really talk about that.
Or maybe we do.
Oh, maybe I think we should actually.
Because you're right about the modular approach. Does give you all those options. But at the other extreme, when you get issues on, let's say, your learning curve, if you've got independent elements, there will be finger pointing and no one responsible, and you're just hung out to dry.
Oh, but it's never anybody's fault except the customer, isn't it? That right?
Exactly, and we know how stupid we are. Not. So I think it all depends upon the skill level that you have available inside your print business. And that if you've got the skills available, people will adapt to the new skills well. But for me, going into, and I was apprehensive going into the fabric world, I got comfort from having the modules from one joined up manufacturer. But I completely see particularly the financial benefits of doing it differently. So there's choice, but no one right answer.
There never is a right answer, or we wouldn't be sitting here talking. Roland.
I have always something to add to that because
I know you have.
the economics come into play as well. If I look, and I'm not promoting just the Hollanders equipment, but if you look at the infrared fixation unit that they have, that's something compared to a calendar system at a certain amount. Say that you do 100,000 square meters a year, then it could mean that based solely on using that piece of equipment, you can lower your cost by as much as 4,000 or 5,000 euros annually by using that type of equipment. So that doesn't mean that a Monty or a Klivrik or something from Setema is worse. They're equally good maybe in quality, but there's something else to add to that. It's not just the application and the quality, it's also the economics behind it. And like you rightfully said so, is that if you're losing money because you have a standstill, because manufacturers are pointing at each other, now it's the ink, now it's the print head, now it's the printer, now it's the fixation, then it means that is your biggest problem. And that's also an economic problem. So if you find the right equipment to go along with each other, and then we're getting to the point, like you just said, that there's a stopping point for manufacturers that now know that they don't try to sell something that could also print on textile, but was created specifically for textile. And that's a huge difference. So if the manufacturers now acknowledge that they have a bandwidth of what they deliver, together with those economics, then you have an honest conversation. And I think that will be the best thing to change the direction of the industry, where people will say, right, I now am determined to get something. I see what the capabilities are. I see the economics behind it. So now I can make an actual right decision. And that's where we have to be as an industry altogether. So Roland and Hollanders and Klivrik and all the others. And I think that's happening right now. So that's a good thing for the industry.
And I think, I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing, but I think we pretty much ran out of time, which is a bit sad. Does anybody want to do a quick roundup of whether we've achieved anything other than sitting on some nice, comfortable squares?
Yeah, or maybe someone has a question.
It's quite difficult to ask it. Does anybody got a question? Because we can't hear you if you have. Is anybody still awake? I mean, that's... Oh, yay!
Yeah, there's a big smile.
There's a guy at the back there. Yeah. So, yeah. Rowan.
Now, I just wanted to say that I think what we as manufacturers need to do is just give a customer or a client all the options available and give all the information and talk to a customer and see what it really is that the customer in the end wants. Because sometimes they don't know what they actually want, and sometimes that does mean that they don't need the fixation unit, a Hollanders fixation unit, but it's easier to and better for them to get or an inline fixation or a Klivrik or start at 2.5 meters width or maybe 1.8, or they can go to 3.2 already. But main thing is listen to the customer and talk to them and give them all the information so they know what is available in the market, so they can make a well-aware decision on where they want to invest in.
I think there's something very important to add to that, and I think that manufacturers must tell the truth. And I know from going around, and I don't mean these people here, but I know you go around the stands at FESPA or you read the literature and you think, who on earth wrote this? Who on earth said this is the fastest thing, it'll be the most versatile, it'll be blah, blah, blah. And manufacturers must tell the truth. And I think it's more crucial in fabric than it is with any other print process. Nobody believes maximum speeds because they're always, draft one pass, and nobody's remembered to say actually that we're talking 4/8 pass, which is enough for, a fit for purpose job. But I've noticed particularly in the textile sector, and there is quite a lot of Chinese input and from other countries. There's a lot of fabrication, if you excuse the pun, out there, and people aren't telling the truth, and that's why I like these guys, because you two do. A few others do as well. Oh, Stephen's got something to say.
Well, I got one thing to say, and it's perhaps slightly a pop at FESPA, because precisely this point that Sophie makes about print speeds and some of the claims, the fact is, this is a technology sector. The technology is changing, evolving all the time, and that involves increases in speed over time. And it is a shame that there can't be some general standards established which help people coming in, or perhaps moving on and going to their second level of investment, that there is greater transparency in what's offered, because it seems to me you have to do all the research yourself and you shouldn't trust any of them, which is fine if you've got the time, but an organisation such as FESPA would have an opportunity to set some standards which would help their members. Unfortunately, it's the machine manufacturers through this show that fund FESPA. So we have a conflict of interest, so we can't expect any help.
Thank you. And Roland, would you just like to say? Roland said enough. Roland DG.
It's okay, yeah, just to add something to what she said. As a manufacturer or consultants, we have the responsibility to teach and to know what customer wants, offer the best solution, because at the end what we want is to have customers satisfied. Sometimes it means we cannot offer our solution, but we can recommend. If we don't want to recommend another product, at least recommend to the customer the right questions he needs to ask in the future. Sometimes it's a compromise for some people working in a real manufacturer, for depend of the position inside the company, to recommend to another one directly, go to see this brand, because maybe we are fighting really hard in some places. Then I understand the situation, but at least our responsibility is to teach the customer, okay, I cannot offer your solution, but if you need this kind of solution, don't forget to ask this, about this, about this. It's the best recommendation, because maybe one day this customer comes back to me, sooner or later, to buy a Roland product, or at least customer always remember someone in this company recommended me the right way to find the products I need. And I think this in textile is very important, because it's like a lot of information in the market, in textile, but at the same time it's confused when you have clear idea about what you need.
And on that note, I'd like to thank our small but perfectly formed audience for sticking with us. If you want to talk to any of these guys, I'm sure they'll be happy to talk to you, and you don't have to wear headsets. But thank you very much for coming along. I hope you found it interesting, and I'd like to thank my panelists, the Roland duo, DG and Rowan from Hollanders, and Stephen Hood from the UK, representing the UK and all points east. So thank you very much indeed.